So vaccine delays coupled with anxiety and hesitancy because of some of the risks associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, could that further complicate efforts to fight the third wave of COVID-19? Dr. Supriya Sharma is the Chief Medical Advisor for Health Canada. She's with me now. Dr. Sharma, good to speak with you again. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Look, how concerned are you that a growing vaccine hesitancy could hamper efforts to get to herd immunity as quickly as possible while these cases surge in Canada?
Of course, we're concerned, right? We've always said that even the most effective vaccine is only effective if somebody trusts it and agrees to have it administered to them. So, we have vaccines coming in, we have a number of them that have been authorized, but it's really dependent on people feeling comfortable enough and having enough information to feel confident that they can go book their appointments and get their vaccines administered.
Let's talk about that. I'm hearing anecdotally, and I'm sure you've heard these stories as well. Lots of concerns from people expressing a reluctance now to get the AstraZeneca vaccine, and some even Johnson & Johnson when it does get to Canada, or people who have a scheduled appointment for AstraZeneca now talking about putting it off. How can you reconcile for those people the position of Health Canada that there's a risk, perhaps a link of blood clots from these vaccines, but Canadians should take them anyway?
So, when we were talking about the authorizations of these vaccines, we're really clear up at the beginning, right? We have information from clinical trials. And even though those trials involve tens of thousands of people, we still may see rare, very rare side effects come up and be detected once you start vaccinating millions and millions of people. Now, and that's what's happened. So there is something, and again, very, very rare. So we always have to put that into context, but it really is a sign that the system is working. So out of all of those millions of doses that were administered, there was an adverse event, this very unusual rare blood clot that's shown up. It was detected. Everybody around the world is working to assess it. And we wanted to make sure that people know about it, right? So we're not hiding information. We want to share that information, but really we need to put it into context. And
Yeah.
the context is, what are the benefits of getting vaccinated versus what might be a very, very rare risk.
So how should someone make the decision to accept AstraZeneca or not, and or wait for another option? What should they be considering?
Well, really, when we're talking, even when we're talking about what Health Canada does, so we authorize the vaccines and say, okay, it can be used in Canada. We have other groups that recommend potentially the use of it in different age groups. And I just wanted to say that when we're talking about those different age groups, it's not because of a higher risk of this type of clot per se, but it's really around the risk of COVID and getting COVID and potentially getting very sick from it. So if you're an individual, by the time a vaccine is offered to you, it's already been through, the whole assessment at Health Canada. It's taking into considerations the recommendations from, the immunization committee. The provinces and territories are looking at what's happening with COVID-19 in their population and who's living in the province and territory, and they're deciding which vaccines to use in different areas. So by the time that a vaccine is offered to you, all of those considerations are already taken, we've been taken into account.
Right.
And so what we're saying is when you're offered a vaccine, then take the first one that's offered to you, because the longer you wait to get vaccinated, the longer it is that you're not protected, potentially, about from getting COVID-19 and getting seriously ill from COVID-19.
Right. So we people are bombarded with information during this pandemic, and they hear about a country that suspends the use of AstraZeneca, such as Denmark, and that sets off red flags when they hear that and wonder if and that they're not convinced it's safe, and they wonder why Health Canada is convinced it is if Denmark's convinced it's not or is concerned that it's not.
Right? When it comes down to those choices, right? So each of those public health organizations for their country and what's happening with COVID-19 in their country makes the decision about which vaccines they'll use. So it depends on how many cases they have, if they're seeing surges, what other alternative vaccines they have. So, that's why we're seeing that. Now, on the Health Canada equivalent side, so the regulatory groups that look at overall benefits and risks and the safety of the vaccines, it's been completely consistent across the world. So there's been, no country that suspended the use of the vaccine. But, as we said on the public health side, they have to take a look at all these other considerations as well.
Okay, a minute we have left together here. We have lots of supply coming from other vaccine makers over time. Is any consideration being given to just parking AstraZeneca and just using Pfizer and Moderna? We've contracted for 120 million doses of those vaccines, even if that means pushing out vaccine timelines. What's the danger of that?
So, I mean, that's absolutely part of the assessment that's being done at NACI. You know, what are the supplies that we are expecting to have? What are we facing in terms of the COVID outbreak? And what other alternatives? The risk of waiting and not using all the vaccines that we have is there's some analysis that's been done that says if you're in an area that has moderate or high COVID transmission, potentially a wait of a day or a wait of a few
Hmm.
days might make the difference and tip the balance in terms of you getting COVID and getting very sick. So
All right.
that's that time that you may not be protected.
All right. Dr. Sharma, as always, thanks so much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your time too.